So this is my topic, and I have to say that I'm going to cover the period after the Second World War till today. Before the Second World War, we have only a few Greeks in Czechoslovakia, some episodic stays, as is similar case as is Giacomo da Chio, about Jacob Paleologos, the prisoner of Alexandros Ypsilantis and his brothers in Terezin. During the era of socialist Czechoslovakia, Greeks formed the largest group of so-called friendly foreigners in the country till the 70s, when came the other exotic nation, the Vietnamese. So the Greeks moved to the second place. The Greek community finally gained the status of a minority in the Czech Republic in 1991, and however this minority does not belong to the older so-called historical nationalities. We can track the massive presence of Hellenism in Czechoslovakia back to April 1948, when 4,000 children arrived in Czechoslovakia. 7 train transports evacuated the children in the period between April 48 and the summer of 1949. You can see here how many children also moved to other socialist countries. I have to say that these numbers are underestimated. We have not strict evidences about the number, but we suppose that there were about 24 to 28,000 children. More than 50 different accommodation facilities throughout Czechoslovakia were used as homes for Greek children in the next 15 years. Archival sources from the end of 1949 mention a presence of a total of 5,000 Greek children in Czechoslovakia, of which about every third child was of Slavic origin. I have to say here that sources refers to them as Slav Macedonians, sometimes also as Macedonians. According to the same materials, Czechoslovakia accommodated the second largest group of Greek children after Romania. Children of the Greek comrades, of Greek fighters, received a triumphal acceptance not only by the regime but also by the Czechoslovak public in that time. Although several Czechoslovak families expressed an interest to provide temporary shelters or even to adopt these children, it was made impossible due to instruction on the strict conservation of their national identity through mass education in the spirit of communist ideology, in order to bring up the future elite of the People's Democratic Greece. Greek children were accommodated in various types of facilities, such as confiscated palaces or in free residential units in spa towns as Karlovy Vary in former Sudetenland. The children themselves confirmed that the overall condition as well as accommodation in Czechoslovakia were much better than in their native villages. The collective upbringing of these children was carried out in a strange paramilitary spirit, where a special nationalist party patriotism was the prevailing element among both Greek and Slavic children. This generation of children growing up in orphanages or homes of children, the last one was closed in 1962, formed 10 years later the second generation of Greek refugees living in Czechoslovakia. This generation adapted to Czechoslovakia without any major problems. However, there is no measure to quantify the psychological distress and other impacts of the war experience. And likewise, there is no way of measuring or counting the harm caused by the separation from their native villages, from their native relatives, in particular the long-term separation from their mothers. Following the August 1949 defeat, we can see here the moving of the adult emigrants, not only to Czechoslovakia, but to other socialist countries. I have to say also that this numbers is according to Communist Party's census, and it is strongly underestimated. Most of them arrived to Czechoslovakia by railway from the Greek community of Bulkes in the Yugoslav Vojvodina, with the rest arriving from Greece after an exhausting trip of, you can see here the roads they follow. Some of them came to Czechoslovakia from Yugoslavia, from Vojvodina, and the rest by ship. They had an exhausting trip through Mediterranean, and then the ships approaching to port of Gdynia in Poland. Altogether, including the already settled children, Greek refugees numbered more than 12,000, and along with the community in Poland, they were the second largest community of Greek political refugees, and the community in Tashkent, in exotic Soviet Uzbekistan, was the strongest one. After a short time in quarantine, they were settled in approximately 24 villages in the prefectures of Jesenik, Krnov, and Žamberk. These areas used to be inhabited by Sudeten Germans, and after their expulsion, they provided plenty of free accommodation and opportunities to work in agricultural farming, as was requested by the Greek Communist Party. These three districts were located near the Polish border, rather isolated from the main urban centers and major transport areas. However, the initial estimates made by both communist parties of Greece and Czechoslovakia was soon proved unrealistic. They thought that the Greek farmers will cultivate in Jesenik and Krnov tobacco, and then it turned out that the Greek farmers were unable of farming in the soil of the Czech areas. The overall opportunities to get in contact with Czech majority were initially very limited, and the Greek settlers remained isolated for a long time after their arrival in Czechoslovakia. A mutual mistrust between the Greeks and Czechs was a dominating feeling at the time of their first contact. This fact was also included in various reports. According to this report, Czechs were prone to call urban settlements with a greater concentration of refugees as the quarters of gypsy Greeks. In addition, other serious problems occurred on the process of turning the Greek peasants to proletarians. Difficulties also appeared in nutrition. It was not so good for them to get knedliki and other meals according to Czech cuisine. Moreover, obstacles in adaptation largely stemmed from the low cultural and educational level of immigrants. About 20% of them were totally illiterate. In 1952, the Greek party leadership finally admitted that refugees in Eastern and Central Europe would not stay there temporarily, as was originally anticipated. Nikos Zachariadis, the leader of the Greek communists, who had initially demanded that refugees will stay together and be ready to fight, began to urge upon the fraternal parties to include the refugees into heavy industry. His requirement was followed by a mass movement of refugees to the Ostrava region, as you can see in the map, where hundreds of Greeks got involved in the construction of new neighborhoods and also of new cities, as is Havirzov, Karvina, and Trinec. Also, smaller groups of refugees then headed to Brno, to Prague, and to Beroun. But the center of the Greek refugees, of the Greek community in Czechoslovakia, stayed till the end of Greek emigration in Ostrava. I have to refer two steps for better adaptation of Greek immigration to the Czech society. The first step was the family reunification, when during 52 and 54, more than 400 people moved from Czechoslovakia to other socialist countries, and approximately same number of refugees came to Czechoslovakia. Then the second step I have to refer is the inclusion of the Greek children into the Czech education system, and the reunification of the majority of these Greek children with their families. At the same time, hundreds of young Greeks from children's home began to work, mostly in production. They easily adapted to the Czech environment and also adopted some aspects of the Czech lifestyle. The first contacts with their Czech peers were being established at the time, resulting in mixed marriages. A phenomenon of conflict between older and younger generation of refugees became evident in the 60s. It was that classic, well-known schizophrenic situation, the anachronistic roles of life stereotypes of a closed immigrant family or community life of refugees were not in accordance with the Czech models, with which the young Greeks had identified themselves. At home, most immigrant parents imposed a prospect of a compulsory return to the homeland on their children. The motherland, to which the Greek youth had only fleeting memories, represented for their parents the goal of all their efforts. The most known wishing και του χρόνου στην πατρίδα, the next year to go to our homeland. Although their homeland did not treat them well, they were accused of treason. The government stripped them of their Greek citizenship and forbade them to return to Greece forever. Just a few things about the legal status of immigration. Although the Greek refugees represented the largest group of foreigners, as I told, in the socialist Czechoslovakia, their legal status basically remained unclear until the end of their stay. The absence of an appropriate legal framework caused many problems in their daily lives, resulting in a strong feeling of being foreigners without passports. Yet any attempt to obtain permission to travel outside Czechoslovakia, whether it was intended as a visit of some People's Democratic State or Greece, presented for each Czech Greek and bureaucratic odyssey. In addition, the emigrants were rather often exposed to humiliating demands by the Greek embassy in Prague, in Budapest, in Bucharest. Very often the responsible official at Greek embassies requested the applicant to sign a declaration or a revocation of his or her political beliefs. The issue of repatriation became urgent again immediately after the fall of the military dictatorship in Greece. There were around 10,000 refugees still residing in Czechoslovakia in the early 80s. The issue of repatriation was legislatively solved by a decision of the socialist government of PASOK, which in 1985 allowed a free return to all political refugees who were of a Greek nationality. That means that they don't allow to return the Slav Macedonians. Here you can see a very well-known director who lives between Greece and Czech Republic till today. It is Giorgos Agathonikiadis after his repatriation in Athens. How it was the situation after the first census in post-communist Czechoslovakia, counted about 3,400 Greek citizens in country, suggesting that about 3/4 of Greek immigrants had returned during 80s to Greece. And how is the situation today? After the end of the Cold War, the Greek community was finally created, as I told, a minority state. After 1989 is roughly consistent of 4,000 people who stayed in the country due to their family or professional ties. And the Greek community in the Czech Republic is currently, according to my opinion, the most important link between the two countries. The Greek Association of Greek Communities in the Czech Republic has today 12 communities. The majority of them is in northern Moravia. Greek language lectures, history, seminars, folklore music, as you can see, and dance events, sport activities, publishing activities, activities for children are the subject of these communities. We have also some Greek. I know the photo, it is not the best one for to refer for these activities. I hope that then we will have more time to speak about the departments of modern Greek philology in Prague and in Brno. According to my opinion, the presence of Greeks and these two departments are the most strong links between Greece and Czech Republic. Here I have the results of the last census from the last year. As you can see, more than 2,000 persons declared their Greek nationality. It is much more than 10 years before, and you can see also in which regions they went. These people are coming because of the economical crisis in Greece. Most of them are IT specialists, but not only. You can meet very often in Prague, in Brno, especially a lot of Greek teachers, doctors, but also cookers and workers in other fields. I have to stay here and to give you the opportunity if you have some question. Thank you for your attention.